Hello all, welcome back to this new video. In this video, we'll be focusing on discussing about one of the most important topic in the generative AI and agentic AI, that is prompting. First thing, first we'll understand what is prompt, and we'll understand how to work with prompt, how to actually, our various prompting techniques, and we'll be also working with various examples of prompting. Okay. So first thing, what is prompt? Okay. So I guess you guys have used the various AI models, correct? So you'll be giving some instructions to the AI models, right? You will be getting some responses. So the instruction which you give to a AI model, okay, the way you talk, the input which you give to the AI model is basically prompt. Okay. So what is a prompt? A prompt is nothing but a instruction fed, which you feed to the AI, to the AI, specifically your LLM models, correct? Your LLMs, right? So the point here is this seems to be so simple. Okay, you whatever like for example, if you want something through AI, so whatever you want to do with AI, you will feed it to the AI and it will give the response. That is what general, people think, right? For example, if I just go to ChatGPT and if I ask, okay, what is the uh, uh, maybe I'll say, okay, what is uh, deep learning? Okay. For example, if I ask this question, okay, what is deep learning? So I just get some response, right? So you can see I have instructed something, I have asked something, and I got a specific response. So seems to be simple, right? But the main important point is many times when you go for a complex use cases or a sort of complex thing, you might be observed that AI might not give you the exact response or wanted response or whatever you want, right? The exact response you want. And that might be frustrating as well. See, the reason behind that is it could be the prompt. The prompt could be the reason. Again, I'm not saying the prompt is the only reason. There could be other reasons. It could be the AI hallucinations and all the other reasons. But yeah, one of the major way, one of the good way to get the wanted information or whatever you are expecting is designing the prompt in a best way. So that is what we'll be learning today. The idea is very simple. We'll be trying to understand what are the interesting and important techniques, right? What are the core prompt techniques which makes things better and which will be helping you to make the prompt structure better and will be writing better prompts. That is a reason there is a separate, category, or you can say separate branch called as prompt engineering, right? So prompt engineering is all about, you try to a prompt engineer. There is also a role called as prompt engineer, right? Prompt engineer. So what exactly is this? So prompt engineering or prompt engineer is the one who actually, design a good prompts, design prompts such a way that you get a better results, or a best results, I can say, from the AI model. That is what prompt engineering and prompt engineer does, right? So now the question is, you might assume like, okay, what is great in getting information from the AI, right? It is just simple, you'll give instruction and you'll get response, but not. There are a lot of things which you have to consider when you are designing the prompt. That is what we'll be learning in this. And this particular section is very important, guys, because in the upcoming sessions, we'll be doing a lot of use cases, right? So you need to write a good prompt when you're working with the different use cases. So this section will be helping you to understand how to, design a good prompt. And always remember, guys, in terms of prompt engineering, when you give a vague prompt or a vague input, okay, say vague prompt, you should expect a vague response from the LLM model. Okay, so you can say the quality of the input determines the quality of the output. Okay, so that is the one of the important core principle of prompting technique, right? The quality of input determines quality of output. right? So let's understand how do we actually write the prompt. Okay, so basically, guys, there is an anatomy of a good prompt. Basically, I can say a structure of a good prompt. Generally, a lot of researchers and the AI engineers follow. So I'll just talk about the anatomy right now, and we'll just try to see how various use cases of writing a good prompt. Okay. So what is a general structure? Okay, so when you say, okay, when you're writing a prompt, how do you follow a structure? What is a general structure of a prompt? Okay. Again, this is a common structure. You might, according to use case, you might slightly tweak it and modify it. It's not compulsory that okay, you have to maintain the structure always. But good to maintain and good to know about the structure such that in future if you want to tweak something, you can actually tweak. Okay. So first thing is you always want to give you should always have to give the something called as context. Context. You have to have this context in your prompt. So what is a context? Context is nothing but the background information, some kind of background information, your situation, what you are, who are you, okay, what is this task about? Okay, this is like a background information in the prompt. It's kind of a background information in the prompt. Okay, that is context. So context makes the AI model understand, okay, what happened in the past or what is actually the situation, current situation, and based on that, it will try to tailor the response. And second one is the task. What is the AI? What AI has to do? Okay, what AI has to do? AI to do, right? What AI has to do? That is the task. That is what we have to mention in the task. And third is the format. Okay, because sometimes we expect our output in a specific format. We might not get that particular format from the AI system, right? So what format you want to go with? Okay, so like I can say the output structure. Okay, so this what format I'm expecting this particular format from you, something like that. Okay, and you can say constraints. Constraints are very important, guys, when you're working with AI because AI is, it can assume anything. It can give whatever. It doesn't have any boundaries. But you as a person, you as a AI developer, you should decide, or you as a who use the AI should decide. Okay, what will be the constraints? What will be the boundaries? And also in constraints, you can actually give your actual requirements. Okay, these are my requirements. This is my info. This is what I want. Okay, so it could be I can say boundaries, or it can also be requirements. You can set your requirements in the constraints. So these are the most common things you have to give when you're working with AI. Apart from this, some additional things you can also give some additional things. Like for example, sometimes you might have a dynamic input. Okay, so you can set your dynamic input here. Like when you're working with chatbot kind of application, your dynamic input will be your always will be your new question. So that dynamic input, obviously, it could be dynamic input, and sometimes you might also want to give some additional instructions. You can add it. That is optional again, depending upon your use case. Okay, so these are the most common things, most common structure you have to follow. Also, there are few more things I'll be adding on soon, like for example, the role-based prompt, and also few short examples. All these things I'll be adding soon in the next upcoming techniques. But this is like a basic structure, I can say, a basic structure you have to follow when you are working with prompting. Okay. So if you follow this structure, there is a chances that you can actually, get a better response, a best response from the AI. Okay. So we'll do one thing. Now we'll just go back to the lab and we'll explore this particular structure. And in the lab, guys, we will also talk about different prompting techniques, and also we will explore about the LangChain prompt templates. If you remember in the last session, I talked about there is something called as prompt template. So in this video, we'll talk about what is prompt template, what is the use of prompt template, and how do we use it, right? What is the main reason why we go with prompt template? Okay, so let's go to the lab. So this is the lab, guys. I mean, this is the file where I already shared with you. So this is lab 3 prompting techniques. Okay, and in this lab we are working with a different file format. So in the earlier labs we have used .py files, correct? But in this lab we'll be using .ipynb, which is which will be helping us to make things better. The reason why I've used ipynb basically stands for Interactive Python Notebook. Interactive Python Notebook, if you don't know. So this is generally used for practice purpose. Of course, in real time, when you're working in real time, you might not use this IPynB format, but generally this IPynB is used for practice purpose. So as we are practicing prompting, I just wanted to introduce you IPynB, and we'll be working on this. And the advantage of IPynB files is this IPynB files look like this. Cursor can also process IPynB, and the good thing is everything can be divided into something called as cells and sections like this. You can see we are dividing this entire code into multiple sections, and we can run each section separately. We can run each cell separately, such that we can see each output separately. So that is the reason why I choose the IPynB here. So I'll show you how to set up IPynB, the basic setup. Basically, already the cursor can read the IPynB files, but the only thing is we have to set up the first time you have to set up some things. So I'll show you how to do that. Okay. So once you open this IPynB file here in the cursor, you'll be seeing this face, this particular interface, and here you'll be having something called a select kernel. So you can click on this. The moment you click on select kernel, you'll be seeing this virtual environment. Okay, so already we have created this virtual environment earlier, right? So you can just select this virtual environment, which means that this cursor, this file will be using this virtual environment. Once you have done selecting it, you can actually, start working on this. So, but there is also some additional installations to be done in order to work with this IPynB. That installations will be automatically done by this cursor IDE. So how it will do it since you can just run this cell. Okay, first you can start running this cell. Maybe you can how to run the cell means either you can click on this execute cell button, or there is a shortcut that is shift plus enter. So if you just do shift enter, it will start running. Now the moment you click on shift enter, or the moment you click on execute cell, you'll get this a prompt saying that okay, running cells requires ipy kernel package. So just click on install, so it will automatically install for you. So this is the first time setup, guys. Once it is set up the first time, this automatically installed for you, and you can use that for your respective, from next time you can use the IPman easily. Once it is done, after installation is done, I would request you to once restart the kernel, restart this such that all the installations are effective. So I'm restarted. Now again, you can just run shift enter. So once if you run the shift enter, and if you're able to see something like setup complete, and if you're able to load this, then you are able to run the IPynB file, and you're able to run the your your cells. Okay, so this is the easiest way to learn instead of using multiple files. I just want to put in one file and in multiple cells. Okay, so I hope you are able to set up. If you are facing an issue, just don't forget to post your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer. Okay, now let's come back to our main prompting technique. So here, if you see in this lab, these are the things which we'll be focusing on. You can see various sections in the outline. These are the things we will be focusing on this lab. So first we'll start with understanding anatomy, and we'll be doing one use case, and we'll be working with various techniques like role assignment, few shot, and few other techniques. Okay. So as usual, guys, first we'll start with importing our required libraries. So I'm importing the LangChain init chat model, which is obviously the library which we'll be using for our you know for our initializing the LLM model, which I already told you in the last session, correct? And also we are importing all the required prompt templates. I'll talk about this prompt template soon, which will be helping you to, understand why do we need this prompt template, and what is the exact use of this. Along with that, I have also imported string parsers, which is again converting into string. Here I'm also importing my environment variables, that is .env, and I'm initializing the chat model here. Okay, so LLM is equal to init chat model. I'm just using GPT-4o mini as my chat model, and model provider is OpenAI. Okay, and yes, right now my if you run this, your setup will be complete. It means that your LLM is initialized. So from the next session onwards, we'll be starting working with the prompting. Okay. So let's come to the section, next section. So you can see here I've included some all the types of examples of prompting. So you can just go through this. One is you can see the weak prompt. So for example, imagine you want to write about a marketing, or you want to know about marketing, how to do marketing for a coffee shop. So you'll just ask AI, okay, write about marketing for a coffee shop. So just you can see in this prompt, you're not providing any context, you're not providing any kind of exact task you're providing, but in a just a vague manner. Okay, it's completely vague and unstructured. So in this case, what happens is LLM will assume whatever it want to and give you a response. So for example, let me run this once. So I'll just do shift enter. It will run this particular cell. You can see it is running this particular cell. It means that it is, you can see here we are saying LLM dot invoke weak prompt, right? Means we are just sending that whatever we wrote here directly to the LLM, right? So that is the idea. We are just sending a weak prompt to the LLM. And you can see this is the response we got. This is the response we got from the LLM. And you can see it is giving lots of information which we might not need actually, but it is just giving because it's just assuming whatever it needs, and it's giving. So one important point I want to make it clear is LLMs are designed to answer your questions. Okay. When you're working with LLMs are generally designed to answer your questions, right? Are designed to answer your questions. So what do I mean by that is LLMs are not designed to ask questions. Okay. LLMs will not ask questions. So when you say it will not ask questions, it means that if you give something to LLM, like if you prompt something to LLM, it can give you a answer without asking any question. It will give you some answer. It will give you some response. But there will be lot of assumptions. So LLM will be having lot of questions actually. If you actually, see the deeper part, it will be having some doubts. But the thing is, because it is not designed to ask questions, it is not prompted to ask questions. So what happens is, for whatever doubts it has, for example, it has a lot of doubts in it, right? For whatever doubts it has, it will just directly proceed assuming. Okay. It will go with default assumptions, proceed assuming, and give you the response. So if you don't mention that in your prompt, or if you don't encourage LLM to ask questions, so it will just proceed assuming whatever it need to assume, and it will provide that in the response. And that is where you'll get a wrong and bad response. Okay. So I'll just show a small demo. It will be an interesting demo to understand this. So let me, open a new session. So here I'll just show a small demo like how LLMs generally assume things. Okay. So I'll just ask, imagine my task is to write a code to uh, check palindrome. Okay. We'll write a simple code with LLM to check whether string is palindrome or not. Okay. So I'll just say, write, let's ask this question to the LLM and let's see what response we get. Okay. So if you see now here, the first thing, if you observe carefully, I didn't mention which programming language I don't want to go with. I didn't also mention what should be my structure of my code. Nothing I mentioned, right? Just I asked write code to check if my string is palindrome. So you can see default it assumed Python. I don't know why it assumed Python. You can see, right? Default it assumed the programming language that I want a Python, and it is giving the Python. So I didn't told about any programming language, but it didn't ask me which programming language you want and all those things. Right now you can see it is giving me, but the question is I don't want in Python. I want in Java. But again, it didn't ask a question. It is just assuming and giving me the response. Now, okay, now I want to say, okay, I'll say I want in Java, I want the code in Java. Maybe now it says, okay, you know, maybe it says, okay, your code in Java. But see, you can see, right, the difference. It is still assuming and giving me some response. So it is not asking any reverse questions, not asking any question because LLMs are not designed for that. Now, the same way, for example, now I'll just change my prompt. You can see same question. I'll just say, right, yeah. Now let's see another example. So if you see in this case, now instead of giving a vague input like this, what I will do is I'll just I'll encourage LLM to ask questions. So what I will do is just observe. Along with this question, I'll just say, don't proceed, okay, until you have more than, you know, 95% confidence, okay? And I'll say, feel free to ask questions. So if you see here, of course, these structure we cannot follow always because the thing is, this structure is specifically when you're working with chat-based applications. But if you see, even though I'm not providing entire context or entire information in the prompt, I'm just asking or encouraging the LLM to ask questions. Now let's see, just observe how many assumptions actually the LLM have. And in the previous response, it has directly given the code or given the response without clearing that assumptions. But now you can see how much assumptions LLM will have. So the moment I give this, you can see it starts asking questions. You can see it asked me how many questions here. These all were the assumptions which LLM assumed in the last prompt and gave us a response. But now because we have encouraged to ask question and we're encouraged to, you know, don't proceed until it has more than 95% confidence. It is asking this question. For example, you can see the first thing which you are concerned about, the programming language. In the earlier section, it was just giving Python, but now it is specifically asking, okay, which programming language the the code should be written. So I'll say, okay, maybe I'll say Java. You can see I'm just answering the question. So that is the idea here. If you just you're just clearing the LLM assumptions with your answers. So that's how the LLM work. So once if you're cleared, so these were all the LLM assumptions. Once if you're clear, your code will be perfect and perfect to your requirement. Okay. So now it says, okay, which programming language? The second one is should the palindrome check be case sensitive? So maybe I'll say no. Okay. Case sensitive, no. Okay. So yeah, if you see here, answering these questions might be somewhat frustrating, but yes, if you answer it properly, if you clear the doubts, then only you will get a proper response. That is the reason, even though if you don't answer like this, if you maintain that entire context in your prompt, in the format which I just shown you, that is actually better for the LLM to understand. Okay, this example is to show you how LLMs assume, right? So next, it says, okay, should we ignore spaces and punctuations? Maybe I'll say yes, you can ignore. Then I'll say, okay, should the output be strictly ASCII or it could also be include Unicode? So I'll just say it can it can include. Okay, so like this, you are tailoring, you're just answering the questions such that LLM assumptions are gone. Now let's see what happens. So you can see now it has enough clarity. You can see now I have enough clarity, and you can see the requirements are follow. So if you see, it says requirements I will follow. Means what? If you see the anatomy we just showed you, the requirements, right? The constraints and the context is where you have to mention these all. Okay. So right now we didn't mention, so LLM assumed it and gave the answer. But now when we ask the question, it is collecting the requirement from us, and it is, respectively giving the code. Now you can see this code is specific to your interest, uh, your respective requirement. Okay, so this is how the structure will be helping you a lot. That is the reason why the structure is proposed and why the structure is very important. So even though you are not encouraging the LLM to answer question in this particular structure, but you are giving whatever information LLM needs to know for giving your response, right? So now I hope you understood why do we need to maintain the structure. Now let's go back and see an example of how to work with this. So the same example you can see where I'll just say write up about marketing for a coffee shop, but now I'll be maintaining in a proper structure. Okay, so whatever anatomy we just understood. That is, first I'll just give a small context that I'm a small business owner launching a new coffee shop in downtown Seattle. My target audience is young professional students aged so and so, right? And the task, what task it has to do, okay? Create a social media marketing strategy focused on Instagram and TikTok. Provide your response in three paragraphs. You're just mentioning the format, like how much, like how the format should be. Here, it is just giving in 9 to 10 points, which is difficult for a, difficult to read, and this much of content. It will be content heavy, text heavy. But now here you're just telling that I want only three paragraph on specific sections. So you're giving a specific format, and also you're giving some constraints that keep the tone casual and energetic, focus on budget, and include trending content format. So like this, if you maintain this proper structure, LLM will, tailor to your structure, will be specific to your structure and giving the responses. So let's see how the response is for this particular prompt. Okay, yeah. So you can see, right, you got a specific response here. You can see it has perfectly divided into three sections. Okay, one section is content strategy and themes. Second one is specific content ideas, and third one is posting frequency and best practices. So you can see, right, how tailored your response is, and you can see how the output is. It's better than the previous, right? What all things you need. So this is the idea of, this is the example of a strong prompt, how the prompt should be, okay, and how exactly you should work with. Okay, I hope you got an idea. So now you understood the anatomy and why do we need to maintain a good prompt. So in our next section, we'll be focusing on various techniques we have to follow when you're working with prompting. Okay, here we just talked about the basic structure of a prompt, but here we can add few more techniques, few more interesting additions, which makes LLM better. Okay, so let's meet in our next video.